Hey guys, so we're here to talk about Jewish nationalism today, Israeli nationalism, the fall of the Jewish nation and the Bar Kochba rebellion, and the rebirth of Jewish nationalism and a Jewish state in Israel today. We see this history is driven by two horrific tragedies, the Bar Kochba rebellion and the Holocaust. So I'm here with Mr. Wenzel to expand on that.
Hello, Hannah.
Hello.
Yeah, yes, I definitely see as the two most horrific events in Jewish history in the last 2,000 years was the Bar Kokhba rebellion that started in 132 and lasted for almost 4 years. It ended up in a real genocide of the Jewish nation by the Romans. And the second one was the German Holocaust, where the Germans killed about 6 million of us Jews during World War II over a period of about 4 or 5 years too. Those two events were the most, I would say, formative events in deciding the makeup of a Jewish state, or the attitude of Jews toward having our own state. Bar Kokhba rebellion went one way, and the massacre of Jewish nation made Jews decide to abandon dreams of having our own state and just adopt a different social style of interacting with other nations, and that is going into diaspora and becoming second-class citizens all over the world, mainly in European countries, and just keeping our heads down. And we kept our heads down, which allowed us to survive and function and sometimes prosper, although we're always not allowed to express pride of being Jewish and being proud Jews. And our nation was completely abandoned. And that led to a second Holocaust 1800 years later, where it turned out that that formula no longer worked, because despite us accepting a place as second-class citizens, people like Hitler decided that they wanted to kill us anyway. And that massacre made us go back to the concept of having our own state again, like before, during Maccabee times, before Bar Kokhba rebellion, we had our own Maccabee state. So we decided to go back to those traditions and rebuild our country. And that's when Israel was created in 1948.
So you're basically saying that after Bar Kokhba rebellion, a new phenomenon became like deeply ingrained in Jewish psyche, or a survival method, and that was to keep your head down, don't rebel against the ruling authorities, and just go into the diaspora and kind of live quietly. I can kind of see that. Yeah, blend in.
Just blend in with others. Don't rock the boat. Don't try to be too different. At least don't have any expressions of your national pride and national feelings. Just tend to your religion and stay out of sight of the main dominant powers to be. Back then, the dominant powers were Christian kingdoms that ruled Europe.
Yeah, well, I know that the rabbinical political thought following Bar Kokhba became very cautious, whereas before it was, they were very, rabbis and Jews were very upset when the Romans started erecting a temple to Jupiter on the Temple Mount. And following the mass genocide after Bar Kokhba, the rabbis who survived basically tried to keep their heads down, and they even went as far as to refer to Bar Kokhba as Ben Kusiba, derogatory term meaning son of deception, trying to basically say that he's a false messiah. So that was a real movement to differentiate themselves from the rebellion, and the start of keeping their heads down, like you're saying, which became prevalent over the years.
Bar Kokhba was an agent of Jewish pride, of Jewish national pride, and he wanted to hold his head high up and he wanted the whole nation to be proud, to be Jewish, to be proud, to be independent. And that policy ended up with Romans just wiping out the Jews completely, massacring about 600,000 Jews were just directly killed during those massacres. I mean, during this war between Roman and Bar Kochba. Bar Kochba's rebellion overall was fairly successful at first and inflicted tremendous losses on the Romans. Romans ended up sending over 10 legions, which is about half of the whole Roman Empire army, ended up in today's Israel, trying to suppress the Jews. They brought their best commander from the commander of Britannia. He was sent to Israel. The legions from the Rhine area, from Spain, from all over the empire were sent. And after 4 years of really heavy fighting, systematically, Romans gradually pushed Bar Kochba's forces more and more out of the main area of operation. And after destroying Bar Kochba, they decided to destroy the whole nation. So they started a systematic genocide of the Jews, expulsion of the Jews from Israel, mainly from Jerusalem, which was the capital always, a main population center. Jews were not allowed into Jerusalem and were scattered to the wind. And that's how Romans destroyed us. And after that, the Jews realized that the only way to survive was to denounce Bar Kochba and to denounce Bar Kochba's philosophy. So like you are saying, that being a proud Jew was bad for your health and basically led you to being killed. And the subservience, being having appeasing attitude toward the powers to be, the rulers of Europe, the Christian kings and princesses, we could survive. We're allowed to function in the society, but we had to be subservient to others. And the subservient Jew was a cultural development that was mainly inspired by the horrific losses of Bar Kochba rebellion.
I see. What do you think about modern day Jewry? Would you think perhaps there's kind of an ingrained defense mechanism in Jews today to maybe despise Israel or make sure that they differentiate themselves from any nationalist movements happening in Israel today because of this phenomenon that you speak of, that they would like to fit in with the society in which they live, and maybe it's a Western state and not stand out as a Jew?
Yeah, this is a very incisive and clever observation of yours, because I agree with that the subservience to the powers to be, back then it was the Christian Europe. Today it's more secular religion, sort of the leftist kind of, that's the dominant force in the world. But we Jews have learned that being in agreement with the powers to be in the world at large was key to our survival as a nation, as a religion. So that thinking stayed with some portion of the Jews. Majority of the Jews, I think, got converted through the Holocaust, through this horrific experience of Holocaust. Majority of the Jews realized we need our own country. And to have your own country, you have to have your pride, you have to have your army, you have to have your anthem, flag, and all that. But there is still a large portion of Jews that follow the traditions that were inspired from Bar Kochba times. Don't rock the boat, just fit in and be subservient to the dominant powers in today it's in the Western world. Back then it was mainly Europe.
I just beg to differ on one point. You talk about kind of the Jewish nationalism being reawakened by the Holocaust, but it actually started long before that, like with the Dreyfus affair, and then throughout the years there was always small Jewish national movements. They weren't necessarily big, but there was a lot. There was Jewish immigration to Israel, to Jerusalem. Jerusalem always remained prominent in Jewish prayers. It never was
Next year in
completely.
Jerusalem, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, next year in Jerusalem at weddings, it was always mentioned. It's just very ingrained in the tradition, and it wasn't like Jewish nationalism was completely erased. Maybe
That
there was some more
cons
subservience, but there was
yeah,
always
that
nationalist Jewish
that
movements.
concept of being a proud Jew was not completely eliminated, but it wasn't a dominant thought in within Jewish communities. So definitely Dreyfus realized that you cannot be a proud Jew and fully functioning Jew in the Western society and being Jewish at the same time. There'll be always discrimination against the Jews. And that's when first Aliyahs started back in
Yeah.
19th century,
Well,
second
that's what
half.
prompted Theodor Herzl to realize that okay, we actually need a homeland. It wasn't that Dreyfus realized it. Maybe he did. I'm sure he probably thought
Yeah,
about
he
that,
was one of
but
those
he
thinkers.
prompted Theodor Herzl to start the Zionist movement.
So the Zionist movement obviously was started by people like Herzl or Dreyfus, or Dreyfus affair started Herzl thinking about that. But it wasn't a dominant feature of the Jewish society. If you look at the Polish Jews, like a third, I think, of all Jews lived in Poland back then, over maybe a quarter. Among Polish Jews in Poland, general thinking was that we're fine, we're living here and we're good. There was not like, half of Polish Jews wanted to emigrate to Palestine. There were some, and some were leaving, but it was a margin, on the margins of the Jewish community. After the Holocaust, it became majority. It's like everybody and his brother wanted to go to Palestine and start a country because they realized that there's no room for us anywhere in Europe. Everybody's against us, and that feeling that the whole Europe was anti-Semitic was became ingrained and became part of the majority thinking of mainstream of Israeli of Jewish thinking.
That's really interesting points here. We're going to come with some more series about Jewish Israeli nationalism, and how it connects to our ancient history. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for your comments. Thanks.
Thank you.